Today we're finally going to do an update on the markets, and it's kind of interesting that the second I start recording, we have a huge negative red candle. Maybe I'm jinxing the market, but anyway, it's been a while since I've talked about Bitcoin and some of the other market movements, and holy shit, maybe I shouldn't talk at all for a moment here. Let's just watch it move. I mean, seriously, this has been a very volatile market for the most part, and it has moved in a lot of ways similar to how I somewhat expected it to. I said that we would probably see some buying action up into the Bitcoin Gold hard fork, and then we could see a sell-off following the hard fork. Now, what's interesting to me, aside from watching the volume spike and the price go down like this, when we think about the Bitcoin Gold hard fork, the general consensus behind it has actually changed quite significantly since I made that video talking about Jenga. And yeah, I know. If you didn't see that video, go watch the video. You'll know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I talked about basically how Bitcoin Gold, everybody was treating it like it was free money, and therefore it wouldn't be. But the perspective from everybody has sort of changed now. In other words, people are starting to agree with me that altcoins are the better place to be rather than Bitcoin. And I'm a little surprised by this because back when I made that video a week and some change ago, everybody was under the perception that Bitcoin simply could not go down following the hard fork. That was a concept that no one was capable of understanding. How could it go down? You're about to get issued a free dividend and everybody's going to sell the Bitcoin Gold and buy more Bitcoin. That's going to push the price upward. And nobody understands the fact that Bitcoin Gold is already being priced into Bitcoin even though it hasn't been distributed yet. And I know that's a tough concept to understand, but that's the way the markets work. It would not make sense for Bitcoin Gold to not be factored in literally 5 days before it gets issued. And so you have to be mindful of the fact that the market could be applying the wrong market cap to Bitcoin right now, and as a result, we could see a sell-off following the hard fork. However, like I said, there really has been this change in mentality in the market. People are starting to say Bitcoin Gold is a flop. And give this a moment here to load. I actually had it loaded already. Okay, here we are finally. It took a little bit of a while there to load for whatever reason, but here we are on Reddit, and you can see this thread where they're talking about where Bitcoin Gold looks to be a huge flop. And if you look at literally everybody within this thread, okay, maybe not literally, but most people in this thread are talking about how Bitcoin Gold is basically going to be worthless. And as a result of this, the mentality has changed quite a bit. And here you go. This is a perfect example of somebody that, this mentality, when I made that video a week and a half ago or whatever it was, where I talked about altcoins being the better place to invest your money, that was considered at the time to be the contrary or contrarian strategy. And now everybody's talking about how they're going to be selling Bitcoin for altcoins, or they're talking about how altcoins are going to do well following the hard fork. Even Dash is talking about this now. Almost everybody is. And like I said, that was not the popular opinion just a week and some change ago. And so my question is, does this all of a sudden change the theory? In other words, if everybody thinks that altcoins are going to do well following the hard fork, does that sort of jinx it? And I'm still going to stick with altcoins. Personally, I don't think it will jinx it. I still think altcoins are preferable after the hard fork. But I will say that in general here, the marketing behind Bitcoin Gold and all the people that were excited about it, that's completely disappeared. I mean, aside from this thread and a few other ones, there really hasn't been, in my opinion at least, from what I've been seeing, a ton of discussion about Bitcoin Gold. There was way more discussion about Bitcoin Gold a little over a week ago than there is right now, and we're less than a week away from the hard fork. There's no excitement. It's all disappeared. The hype is gone. And as a result of that, it's interesting to me to see what's going to happen here, because that actually could change my theory in terms of us seeing a sell-off following the hard fork. I'm still favoring that there will be a sell-off, a slight one. I still think that there's going to be, in general here, people rotating into altcoins following the hard fork, at least until we get into all the hype behind the Bitcoin 2x hard fork. but it is interesting nonetheless. So I just wanted to point that out for anybody that was sort of watching these markets. We can see here Bitcoin just recovered above 5,900 a little bit here. It's just interesting to see how rapidly perceptions and sentiment changes over such a short period of time. Now, if we move into talking about some of the altcoins that I've invested in, Vertcoin here is one of the ones that I like quite a bit. It has greatly outperformed against Bitcoin, although you wouldn't be able to tell it from this chart. Let's go ahead and go a little bit longer term here. There you go. So it's one of the only altcoins that has appreciated against Bitcoin. Again, I'm not going to shill for it too much because it's such a low market cap, and my YouTube channel is actually starting to get to the size where I can influence certain altcoins. But this has been one that's done fairly well for me, and I will say, despite the fact that my other altcoins have not done so well, this one is sort of making up for it for basically crushing it in comparison to some of the other ones. The other one that you guys know I've talked about quite a bit is ARK, and ARK really has done jack shit, basically. It has really not done too much, okay? ARK has traded sort of in a consolidation range for the past, what is this now, 2 weeks? And it's really traded between 45,000 to 55,000 Satoshi. I'm not really sure what to expect with ARK, so I'm really just basically staking it and letting myself get those. They call it dividends. Really, all I call it is keeping up with inflation. That's what it really is, because ARK, obviously, because it's still in the earlier stages, still has pretty relatively high inflation. So really all you're doing when you stake your coins, people think of it as a dividend. Don't think of it as a dividend. It's keeping up with inflation. Just keep that in mind, okay? And then we have Waves here, and Waves has been the disappointment of all of my altcoins that I'm invested in. This has probably been the biggest disappointment. I bought at around this range right here, I believe like 98,000 Satoshi, and as you can see here, I'm down quite a bit off of that particular investment, a little over 30%. I'm still looking to see whether or not I want to get into it. What's funny is that this is one of the only cryptocurrencies that I am down both in Bitcoin terms and dollar terms. If you look at ARK, I'm up in dollar terms just because Bitcoin has gone up so much, even though I invested around the 55 to 65,000 Satoshi level. But Waves, on the other hand, because it's gone down so much, I'm basically breaking even on a dollar level, which is, again, fairly disappointing. Now, in terms of other altcoins that you should watch, again, I still stick to the main ones. I like to look at Monero. I like to look at Ethereum here. This was an interesting one. Also behaved similar to what we expected it to do, which was we expected it to sort of buy up going into the hard fork and then to sell off really right around at the time of the hard fork. Again, it's just one of those things where you buy into the hype and you sell into the actual announcement or news. And we talked about this earlier on this channel as well. I'm still keeping a close eye on Litecoin. Litecoin has started to recover a little bit. It's still fairly low relative to where it should be given Bitcoin's current price level. However, it is starting to recover quite a bit following all of the headlines from China, despite a significant amount of volume actually coming from China. So hopefully in the long term here, we will continue to see Litecoin go up because, again, I do like Litecoin quite a bit. And I have bet on Litecoin several times before I would bet on Bitcoin. You know, there was a couple of different scenarios recently where I liked the valuation of Litecoin more, just because, first of all, a lot of people talk about me being negative on Bitcoin, but what you have to be mindful of is that Litecoin is almost a Bitcoin substitute in terms of investing, because the correlation between the weekly returns of Litecoin and Bitcoin, at least from the time period that I looked at it, and it's been a little while now since I have, but I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of like 0.6 or so. And so, you know, that's basically, in terms of stock markets, 0.6 correlation or higher is very high, and that's exactly what Litecoin has with Bitcoin. So it can act as a substitute for Bitcoin in your portfolio, because a lot of times it's going to behave similarly, unless something unique happens like it did with the China exchange bans. I still like Litecoin a lot. There's obviously the potential that China will decide to give licensing to exchanges and start opening them up again, in which case Litecoin should perform quite well. Overall, this is really, again, another interesting market. I would say just pay close attention to what happens going into the Bitcoin Gold hard fork, and really pay attention to whether or not we start seeing hype around the Bitcoin 2x hard fork, because that started to die off as well too. And it's probably going to start up again, oh, I don't know, sometime around maybe late October to the beginning of November. We're probably going to see a lot of people start talking about that again, and that could be a catalyst for Bitcoin as well. I'm not exactly sure how people are going to perceive it, because it kind of depends on what Bitcoin does following the Bitcoin Gold hard fork. And we can see here that Bitcoin Cash, in the long term, I'm not certain about the future of it, but I think it's evidence that for one that was hyped up as much as it is, or was, it's really gone down quite a bit from the time of the hard fork. And I tend to think that this trend is going to continue for Bitcoin Cash as long as it doesn't have the Bitcoin branding. So in the long term here, I think that's what's going to happen to most hard forks of Bitcoin. Whichever one doesn't get to keep the Bitcoin name is probably just going to keep going down, but we'll see. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Screw you, BitConnect. As usual, leave a like, comment, and subscription, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.